Thank you all for being here. My name is Brittany Hernandez. I am your host for this Lightning Talk series in partnership with Gavel. I am a lawyer and the founder of Kamayam Law and Kamayam Kamai LLC, both of which focus on how innovations in technology can be used to solve human problems, both within the law and beyond. I'm also a Gavel expert, advisor, and tutor, and I focus specifically on educating law students through my role as the global ambassador to law schools for Gavel. We recently launched the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship program, of which I'm the program director and senior instructor. Today, GigLaw founder and CEO, today, Megan Sawtelle, who is the founder and CEO of AK Lean Virtual Assistants, will be talking to us today about the butterfly effect, how visualizing design can help prevent breaks in your workflows. So we're going to have just a few minutes where I'm going to just set everything up and introduce our speaker. Then we're going to go on to Megan will be giving us her talk, and then we'll take questions for about 5 minutes. We'll do a quick wrap up with some announcements, and then we'll go into an optional 5 minutes of speed networking towards the end. I'd now like to introduce today's speaker. Megan is the founder and CEO, as I mentioned, of AK Lean Virtual Assistants. It is an operations and process support business that works in the intersection between process improvement, business management, and automation services. They specialize specifically in setting up automations and workflows for small businesses throughout the United States. So thank you, Megan, so much for joining us from Alaska. So it's really early in the morning for her. And I will now turn the time over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen going in just a second, but I want to talk a little bit about an introduction. So when you're building in Gavel, a lot of builders focus on the immediate process of getting the workflow built, but they don't necessarily think about the outcome and making changes post-build. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's called the butterfly effect and how that impacts everything. So if you don't already know what the butterfly effect means, it is, according to an encyclopedia definition, it's a common name for what's called sensitive dependency on initial conditions. And putting that in simple terms, it means that a very small event can have a very large and far-reaching impact. So thinking about document builds, oh, Brittany, I can't share the screen.
1 second. Okay, try one more time.
Okay, so thinking about document builds itself, once you construct your workflow, Gavel builds. Once you construct your workflow in Gavel builds, a lot of people will put the variable names in an Excel spreadsheet, which can be difficult for clients to sometimes see. And so we like to use a more visual path to display how the builds are constructed. So what we do is we lay out the page with the questions in this vertical format, and we use lines to bring it to where it needs to go. So for instance, page 1, when we ask about what the gender is, it goes to 2 places. It'll go to page 3, moving into questions for the address, but it also goes down into an invisible logic page to help define in the output how their gender is going to be listed. So this visual workflow allows someone to follow the lines through their construction. So it works well as a visual way to make clients understand how the information flows, but it also works well to explain how changes impact the workflow. Because a lot of times client will come back and say, oh, I just want to change this one little thing, not understanding the ripple effect that it has. So for instance, if a client comes to you and says they want to change a variable name, house XP is missing an E, and they say, okay, I want to change and make sure house is spelled correctly. If they jump in there and they change it without thinking forward, changing that variable name all of a sudden cancels all of these invisible logic pieces because they're pulling from the variable name house without an E. Another common thing that's requested or that's done by clients is they'll jump in and they'll delete a question saying, I don't need that anymore. So if they delete what's your marital status, it cancels these pages and this invisible logic because it's all pulling from that question based on page logic, question logic, or variables. Sometimes clients will even delete an entire page, which can have that page logic that's pulling from other places. So these are really common things that clients will do and then are unsure of why their output documents aren't correct or why their workflows aren't correct. Those have kind of medium impacts, still impactful because the workflow is broken. Some of the changes that seem really, really simple, however, though, can actually cancel out your entire workflow. So if we look at page 3, that's addresses, and notice that there's an invisible logic in page 4. If a client were to come in and forget about this invisible logic page and just say, I want to move the address over to page 5, it actually cancels out the entire workflow. It creates a circular logic because your invisible logic is now trying to pull from a page that's in the future that hasn't been completed yet. And so the reason why we look at workflows in a more visual way when we're explaining them to clients is that a lot of people can see the impact if we do something like this, as opposed to trying to explain the concept working through the Gavel workflow or working through an Excel sheet. So using tools that allow you to do visualization of your workflows can help increase communication. They can help you as a builder jump back into a workflow and know what your impacts are going to be when you make changes. Or they can even help future builders because you can give these to your clients and a future builder can say, okay, this is exactly where I'm going to make this change and this is where the edits are. Sorry, Brittany, I'm having some throat issues.
That's all right.
So some of the tools that we use in AK Lean to do these workflow builds is Lucidchart. And you can do a simplified version where you don't have the layers like this, or you can do a more complex version with the layers. And these type of workflow builds are typically done after you've completed your Gavel build. It doesn't make much sense to do them along the way because you are going to be shifting questions and variable names. And so this is kind of a post-build thing that's done that can be given to your clients. Sorry, I am a shorter presenter, so I'm open for questions around this.
I have a quick question, Megan.
Yes.
Would you go into a little bit more of these ideas around lean building and how this kind of follows this example of like lean methodologies and how that has influenced the ways that you build for your clients and how that kind of is represented in this particular presentation?
Yeah, so lean methodology really looks at trying to add value into your builds while minimizing the impact that the client has to do to input information. So when we're doing builds, we really try to lean on invisible logic to help with the builds. For instance, with addresses, building those complete addresses or those full names based off of the input. So rather than asking what is your first, middle, last name, and then having another question asking what your full name is, we pull a lot on invisible logic. And so you can see in this particular workflow, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different invisible logic pages that the client doesn't see, but it does produce things on the output documents. We especially like to do it where it comes, using visual logic where it comes into play as far as calculations. So if you look at page 7, we have a lot of formulas in here adding the different income items. And that's really, especially when you start getting to this type of complex build, is where these visualizations shine, because people will forget to explain to clients that there are behind the scenes formulas calculating numbers or percentages or formatting things. So our lean approach is really how can we get the clients to do less work while getting the information that they need? And how can we quickly display these builds to the client so they understand what changes they can make and what changes that they can't make?
That helps a lot. Thank you so much. Does anyone from the audience have a question? All right. If nobody has any questions for Megan, unless Dorna has a
Megan,
question.
I was gonna ask, what is the most common sort of like logical mistake that you see your clients making? Because I know you see a lot of people out in the field who are doing all sorts of different types of projects. What are some kind of pitfalls to avoid when you're building out these logical workflows up front?
I think the biggest pitfall I see is that people don't think through how they're documenting their variables. So they might use really undescriptive variable names like MN_1 that they don't really, when they jump back into the workflow later, they don't understand. And so then they haphazardly go and change the variable names. And that kind of leads into that butterfly effect. So I think really having a strategy for naming variables to where you can find them when you're building conditional logic is critical.
That's super helpful.
I just thought of another question as well. Megan has been around this tool for a very long time, like since the beginning, right, Megan?
Close to it.
Yeah. So I just wondered, with the evolution of the platform, how have you been able to, as a user, adjust to changes? Because as you've built these tools, these different workflows with this kind of design methodology in mind of, if you make a change, something will break, but also the tool itself changes, not necessarily that you as the user change something. And it's a beautiful and amazing thing to be part of a company that is so innovative and is constantly pushing out feature updates and is always trying to improve and listen to the customer about how we can make the tool better and more efficient. With that being said, though, sometimes that can be hard for somebody who's been using the tool for a long time and maybe has certain understandings of how to use it and has to sort of adapt rapidly to these changing opportunities. So how do you handle that as somebody who uses this every day and builds for other people? And how do you necessarily communicate that to your clients around feature updates and changes and things like that?
Well, I first definitely encourage them to follow any social pages or any newsletters of the software. If you use it every day in your own office or firm, or if you're building for other people, and to play in the software. So I happen to have a team of builders, and so I'm not necessarily in it every day like they are, but I make it a point to, every month or two, build something that's fun or random so I can see the new features. Because I've seen a lot of features. When I started, the tagger in Word wasn't up and going. And I think that was the biggest adjustment for me, was getting used to relying on the software instead of manually coding the things myself.
Right.
But through creating fun things like a random, survey of your friends, or like, for instance, you used Gavel, Brittany, to create the escape room. Having those fun sort of projects helps you keep up to date with the different features. And then as you find features that make your clients' lives easier, or even a past client, you can reach back out to them and say, hey, I noticed that there's this feature update. Would you like me to explain it to you? And then you can create and foster those relationships with clients and past clients over the features of the software.
I think that's such a good point around sort of paying attention to the updates, the newsletters. There is a feature update page as well for Gavel. So whenever there's a new update, you can always kind of refer to that page and make sure you understand how these might affect your workflows, or how it's usually obviously to make them better and to make your ability to build better. So I think that that's a great point. We did have a question from Mark in the audience. So I don't know if you want to unmute Mark, or I can ask a question for you, but it relates to invisible logic. Mark, did you want to unmute or do you want me to ask it for you?
Sure. Just a quick question. Invisible logic pages are very powerful, but do they cause any trouble when users back up in an interview and so they need to recompute based upon intervening changes in answers?
I haven't seen too many impacts like that, because if you jump back to the page where they're putting in new information, it keeps up pretty well. So I haven't had any clients complain of situations around that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Megan, are there any other questions from the audience? Because if not, we'll just thank Megan for her time and do a quick wrap up. Do put your, if you want to participate in the speed networking towards the end, you are welcome to put your name in the chat and I will pick that back up. So let me just share my screen now and we'll do some quick announcements. So I just wanted to, again, thank you, Megan, so much for being here with us and sharing such an amazing tool. So we did a tech check previously to just make sure everything was working correctly and everything. And Molly and I were just floored at the preparation that goes into the way that Megan approaches her builds. I haven't used that method before, but I just loved the visualization because everyone has a different approach, different learning styles, and especially when you're communicating information to a client, such as that you're building for someone else. A lot of people on the call will build for themselves in their own practices, for example, or their own companies. But when you are a professional builder and you do it for other people, you have to communicate that to people. But when you're building for your own law practice or your own practice generally, and you have a team, you need to be able to communicate how changes affect everything. One change of an uppercase to a lowercase or vice versa, or one letter changing can really break your design. So you want to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and those types of charts can really help with that. So just thank you so much for your time, Megan, and for sharing your secrets with us.
Thank you for having me.
So our announcements from Megan are that AK Lean Virtual Assistants just launched their Book a Builder program, which I think is brilliant. So basically, if you need a simple Gavel workflow set up quickly, you can book one of their builders for a day to construct, test, and launch your workflows in just one day. So the first 10 days booked are $100 off. Megan, would you mind just grabbing a link to this program and putting it in the chat for us?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And from my side, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the program director and senior instructor for the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship Program. So that is where you are, if you're a current law student or a recent graduate within 1 year, or a participant in an incubator program, such as those put on by bar associations or law schools, then do reach out to me at brittany@gavel.io because we're accepting applications on a rolling admission basis until March 28th. And what this is a 12-week certification course where I am personally doing all of the content and curating all of the content specifically for the fellows to help them not only learn the tool, but also prepare to enter the business world. So we're really excited by this program because at the end, all of those people who have completed the certification course are also eligible to enter apps into a hackathon competition where there are 3 prizes of $1,000 each, as well as guaranteed paid positions with gig law up to 16, as well as lots of other benefits. So I'm really excited about this program. The students are doing really, really well. I'm really proud of all that they've been able to do. So from Gavel, the first thing is they have a new name. So Gavel was formerly Documate, and so we've just rebranded recently to Gavel within the past few weeks. And this is to kind of, it kind of like signifies this shift in focus from document automation to legal productization. So as we push forward as a company and as an industry generally, it's really important to widen our minds about what's possible within not just in the legal world, but in our personal lives to scale our businesses and our legal expertise. So this name change kind of represents that. Also, there are a few feature updates, as we talked about with Megan, adapting to changes, and always usually they're meant to help us do better. So a couple of really cool ones that are exciting, that organizational users, which was a new classification where they have their own data manager, they can download their documents from the data manager. You can also white label error messages to make it to where you can refer them to your end users or your clients to how to contact you if there's any errors. Also, there is an exciting estate planning automation workshop coming up on March 21st at 12 p.m. Molly, did you want to drop anything in the chat about that or take a moment to say anything about this?
Yeah, I just put the link in the chat. This is going to be a live workshop where we will discuss kind of the process for automating estate planning. I'll be hosting. I am an estate planning attorney and now on the Gavel team. So I'll share my experience. I also, we're going to have Trisha from our team, who's an automation expert. She's going to come and help out. So if you have questions, if you just are interested about the automation process in general, even if you're not in the estate planning practice area, join us. We'll send out a recording to all registrants as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly. And finally, just a few reminders about the wish list. So Gavel has a wish list. If you have any feature requests, you can add them to the wish list or upvote other ones that have already been added. This is really useful because we do take it very seriously. So do put your suggestions on there and you'll see when they go on the roadmap. Also, there's office hours every Friday with Trisha Duffin, who is incredible and has done a talk for us before. There's also a very active and supportive Slack community. So I do encourage you to join that as well. So we host these lightning talks on the last Thursday of each month, except for November and December. And the next one will take place on March 30th at the same time. We'll hear from Jacqueline Schaefer, who is the founder and CEO of Clearbrief.ai, and she'll be discussing how legal tech can improve client appreciation of your legal work. I actually saw Jacqueline speak at a chat GPT talk not too long ago, and she is brilliant and her tool is really interesting, and it'll be really interesting to hear her perspective on this topic. So I do recommend that you come. So it is a word-in that leverages AI to help litigators find the best evidence for any sentence in their draft, generate and check citations, and instantly complete tedious litigation tasks like the table of authorities and hyperlinking briefs. So I'd be really interested to see how these two word add-ins, such as like the Gavel word add-in and Clearbrief, can be used in combination to really, really deliver excellent products to our clients. So that concludes the main portion of our lightning talk for today. We'll be transitioning now into an optional 5 minutes of speed networking if you'd like to stay on. Feel free to go if you need to, but we'll stop the recording now and move into the speed networking portion.